$10 daycare has been around for a while in Canada, but the problem is there continues to be a significant shortage of spots available. So why is this the case and can it be fixed? Joining us today from Calgary is Krystal Churcher. She's the chair of ACE, the Association of Canadian Early Learning Programs, a nonprofit coalition of licensed childcare providers. So good to have you with us, Krystal.
Hi, Paul. Thank you.
You bet. How many childcare spots are actually needed in Canada, and how many are available at this point?
That's a great question. I don't really know the answer to that. I think it's changing all of the time, and
Hmm.
depending on how this funding is structured in the future, it might look a little bit different come April 1st. But roughly in Canada right now, I think we have like 980,000 childcare spaces, licensed childcare spaces.
Hmm.
I know the goal for the federal program was to create, I believe, another like 750,000 or something along those lines, but I'm
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100% sure on those numbers.
Yeah, that's a lot. I know Prime Minister Carney is promising to create a whole bunch more, right? So has he communicated with childcare providers how and when this will happen?
We have not heard from our prime minister yet. Our new prime minister, we have reached out. Same with we have a full new federal ministry as well on this file, and provincially now too in Alberta, where we've had some changes to the ministry. So we're kind of just trying to catch up a little bit with all of those political changes, and we do have some meetings coming up in the next week or so.
Okay, but there are significant shortages, right? I mean, how bad is it, I guess? Like what is the
Yeah.
waiting line like?
So right now there's about 250,000 children on wait lists across Canada. So it's a significant shortage. This program created an accessibility crisis Canada-wide overnight. It wasn't well planned out as far as how to support the instant demand that it created. There was no workforce strategy. I mean, we're a heavily regulated industry. We need professionals and educators that are ready to take, the jobs and be able to staff all of these new spaces. So, yeah, there's definitely been issues with it and shortfalls for staffing, and then shortfalls for infrastructure to support the demand. So, I mean, Alberta has about a 2 to 3 year wait list on average for a facility-based daycare space. Yeah.
Are there any other provinces that are doing better? Like, what's that like across the country? I'm assuming it varies by province to province.
Yeah, province to province. I don't know if anyone's doing better. I mean, I've heard parts of Ontario wait lists are as high as 9 years
Nine
for
years?
space. So,
Okay, your kid's
yeah,
graduating from
so
school now. Come on, you know.
exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a you got to plan out your daycare before you even plan on having a children in Canada, in Canada right now. So,
Now, you say that there are actually centers, though, that are fully equipped, ready to open, like right now. So what is stopping them from opening? Your press release mentioned ideological barriers that are causing problems. So what do you mean by that?
well, I mean, the federal program has rolled out in full support of a public childcare system, which sounds amazing. It is essentially, taking our mixed model childcare system across Canada and converting it overnight to something that is more similar to like our public school system.
Ah.
Um, but that's, a huge shift. And the ideology behind that doesn't necessarily transfer to, I would say, real life in childcare or on the ground kind of what we need in childcare. Different provinces have different structures of how they've run their different childcare systems. Alberta has a mixed market, so we've always had a large for-profit or private stakeholder presence in childcare. About 70% of all licensed spaces in Alberta are in those kind of private childcare centers. So to say that you're rolling out a national program that only supports maybe 30% of your childcare system in a province doesn't necessarily transfer to instant access for families. And, we have a lot of for profit operators that are ready to invest in this space, that have invested in Alberta to create centers, who now, as of May 15th, because of the parameters of the federal program, aren't able to access the grants that parents need to get those fees down to $15 a day. That's where
So,
the
so if I'm understanding you correctly, so basically the private operators uh, are barred from these subsidies, I guess, right? That are going to make it really affordable for parents, and that's simply because of how they're structured corporately. As again, they're privately run, not completely under the public. Again, I guess it's kind of a monopoly. I guess a government money coming into this, right? And that's the main reason that's stopping that.
It is. I mean, there's a huge ideology behind this that somehow that nonprofit, is maybe better or provides a different level of service. I think that we need to kind of restructure how we look at that funding that's coming from the government. It isn't coming to centers. It's not coming to the operator. It's a fee replacement essentially. So childcare costs a certain amount. Parents would usually have been paying that full amount. The government is now stepping in and funding that under the $10 a day program on behalf of parents. It's not going into the pockets of operators. So, there's needs to be a real shift, I think, in how we look at the funding and who it's meant for. Really, it's very restrictive, and parents are losing access to what they have chosen in the past for childcare options. They can't access this funding that is for them in centers that are open and ready to take them. There's no access, or in different options like maybe preschools or day homes or different things that they have chosen in the past. It's just not available. It's more of a one size fits all
Yeah,
public
right.
childcare
So,
system.
so again, if they were to change their policy and say, okay, this this extra subsidy coming from the government here is going to go also to private child care centers, that
Mhm.
would certainly open up more spaces, which is what we all want, right? So,
Absolutely.
but is it a mindset basically that, well, then maybe they're making money on a government subsidy, but you're saying it's not going for profit, it's going simply directly to the parents.
Exactly. I mean, I think that it's really important to look at this program and really look and think critically on it. It sounds really great, and the intentions behind it may be wonderful. And I think parents really do deserve affordable childcare, but there's some core fundamental issues with this program that I think we're going to have a very difficult time getting past to make it successful and to make it long term in Canada. One of them is that it isn't means tested. So under the federal parameters of this program, provinces are not allowed to means test this program, which is really what we've seen in Alberta recently. You have families across the board get access to $15 a day childcare, regardless of income. So a high income family is paying exactly the same amount for childcare as someone who's maybe a single parent. It's just not an equitable system.
That I've
And
heard that complaint quite a bit, right? You hear people saying, "Oh, hold on a second." So somebody's making, six figures, and somebody else is making less than 30 grand. That's a significant difference in how you're going to live life. What you can afford and what you can't. So why would that be a flat rate? A lot of people are upset about that, and understandably so.
Yeah, I mean, one of the core pillars that the federal program is based on is universal access. And what they mean by universal access is that all families will have access to the same affordability measures. So when you get to the $10 a day, budget promise flat fee across the country, that comes at significant government funding for all families, not just the ones that would say maybe need it more than others. And I think that's where we have to look at. There's only so much money available, right? Like we're running at a significant deficit in the country. The province of Alberta was over budget by $750 million last year in this program. It's not sustainable to continue to move forward without means testing it. I mean, you're looking at a $10 a day average coming March 31st in Alberta and across Canada, which means that the governments are provincially and federally are paying the rest of the childcare fees up to that $10 a day for everyone. So, I mean, I think if we're going to talk about responsible use of public funds, we need to look at that for sure, and it should be means tested.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Okay. I know you also talk a lot about regulatory bottlenecks, compliance delays, that sort of thing, red tape. Can you explain that, unpack that a bit for us? What kind of stuff do you guys typically run into here?
I can try. I mean, I think we've seen it kind of play out in real life recently with the for-profit space cap being met on May 15th, kind of unexpectedly in Alberta. It takes about, 9 months minimum, probably closer to a year and a half to open a childcare center, regardless of your corporate structure. It's not a fast process. It's heavily regulated. It's very slow moving through all of those different levels of government to get to your childcare license. And the childcare license portion of opening a center is your very last step. So before you ever talk to anybody from the children's services, the children's licensing portion, you've already done all of your construction. You've either signed your lease, built your center, you've passed all of your health, your safety, your fire. You are ready to open. You're fully operational before you ever submit that application for a childcare license. So when there's a huge policy shift, like we just saw on May 15th in Alberta, it has a massive impact to a whole bunch of people that haven't even been to that point where they would have ever been communicating with children's services. So it comes really as a surprise a lot of times. And we've kind of seen the same situation play out in Alberta multiple times in the last 3 years of being under this program.
Yeah,
So it's a very slow
that's not very attractive for anybody who's thinking of starting a business. In fact,
no.
you might think, maybe I'll try a different type of business here, right? Because
Yeah.
that doesn't look like a success model the way it's set up there by the government. So, I mean, operators, you point out in your press release here that you guys need stable, predictable funding. Right, that again, will
Absolutely.
relate to the actual cost of delivering the kind of care that needs to be delivered, and then you have all these hoops to jump through, and maybe you get accepted, maybe you don't. Well, man, who's going to jump into that, right? Um, mm,
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, quite a few childcare operators call it a very hostile environment right now. It's definitely not kind of the pro entrepreneurial
yeah,
spirit that you would see in Alberta for other sectors in childcare. I think that, policy wise, that's, one issue, but the bureaucratic implementation portion of this program, we need to do a lot better in Alberta. There has been just an absolute failure in the systems and a mismanagement that is essentially going to cost a lot of people, potentially their homes, significant investment, and a mass amount of stress when if we had open lines of communication, and I think a respect for the investment that people are making in these communities across Alberta, we would never be in the situation we are right now.
hmm. I understand that you and others advocate for a model of funding that should follow the family and kind of a no strings attached to provincial funding, right? Because we get federal funding and then the provinces sometimes kind of, are maybe forced to spend it certain ways. So what kind of strings do they actually attach? And is the federal government open to, a model that would follow the family sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think our federal government has changed. I believe that, our federal government will probably be a little bit more open to trying to navigate this system so it works past April 1st, because many people are not aware that this program, it ends March 31st in Canada. Um, Provinces have been offered an extension by the Trudeau government just before the shift in government of 5 years extension under this program. Alberta, Ontario, and Saskatchewan have opted out of this program as of April 1st. So if we look at those numbers, our national childcare program in Canada will have less than 30% of childcare spaces participating in it come April 1st. So I think if our new government federally doesn't see that as a massive red flag that this program is not working the way it's supposed to, then they're going to be missing the boat on this. And I think it's a great opportunity to sit and really revisit why we're in the situation we are 5 years later, that why, the majority of our childcare spaces are not participating in this past March 31st, and really rework it, and hopefully we can see it go back to the parents in a way that's sustainable and provides parents with choice of where they want their children to go.
Okay, well, parents, take the time to make an appointment with your MLA, your member of parliament, and let them know how you, this needs to be communicated. So there's an opportunity here for sure. Hey, thanks for your time today, Krystal. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Krystal Churcher, the chair of ACE, the Association of Canadian Early Learning Programs, a nonprofit coalition of licensed childcare providers. I'm Paul Arthur. On behalf of all of us here at BCN, thanks for watching.